Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to make a tiny doll theater. It's really tiny, and this is kind of special to me because I had one as a child, so this was a fun build to do. This is a Danish tradition. I don't know if it's in your country as well, that the kids had these theaters to play around with. I had a lot of fun with mine as a kid, so it's fun to make this one. So anyway, let's turn around to the table and get started. Here is the measurements used for this theater. I know the little piece here is saying that you need 3 of them. That's not true. And it's also a tiny bit too long because I made it in the full length of the theater, but it has to be a little shorter. I will show you a little later. But first I am taking my wood piece here. It is a 1.5 millimeter thick wood. And I am going to place all my measurements on this piece of wood so that I can cut it out and get started. When I have all my measurements down, I am going to cut out the pieces. And I'm cutting out the inner square on the front first, because that's easier than if you cut the square out first. Remember, you need 2 of the big squares, one with the hole in the front and one that is just one big piece for the back side of the theater. Then I cut 2 pieces of the longer one, and I'm placing the front and the back of the theater together, placing it to the edge and making a line, and then I'm going to cut that little piece off, and then I have the length that I need for the bottom part and the floor part of the theater. Now I'm going to glue these parts together. So first I'm going to glue the bottom part to the back wall. Then I'm going to glue the front piece on. One of the sides here is a little thicker than the other one, and you want the thicker side at the bottom. So I'm gluing that down, and I decided I have to do it like this instead, because I'm making sure that the front and back piece are sitting correct. Then I have a tiny bit of extra piece here that I'm going to place underneath to make sure that the bottom part is raised enough so that you have it sitting right when it's glued together. And then I need to glue this little piece here into the theater as well. It is the floor part of the theater, so the floor is kind of raised from the bottom. So I'm gluing this on both sides, and then I'm trying to connect everything again, making sure the bottom part is straight, making the front part ready, placing this floor part where I want it on the front. You need around is that 1 or 2 millimeters width from the top of the opening and down to the floorboard. And then I'm just going to try to glue everything together here. It is a bit tricky, but it's possible. Then I made a smaller piece that fits the width of the theater here, the inside width, and I'm going to glue that here in the top, in between the front and the back. This little piece is, I think it's a 5 or a 6 millimeters width, so that it fits together. I had a few difficulty with the bottom and the floor parts, so I actually took 2 stir sticks and glued them on top of each other and placed them together inside the flooring. You can see that there. Now I am making a tiny piece here that can cover that part so that you don't see the opening here, and I'm only making it big enough to cover this part, so the height and the width of your theater, so you have to measure that out on your own work, because it might be different than mine. Then I glue this little part at the bottom here to close off the end, and I'm doing this on both sides of the little theater. My piece was a bit too wide, so I left that at the bottom part of the theater. This way I can sand everything nice and neat afterwards, and I don't have to be careful with cutting out the exact same size that I need here without breaking my little wood piece. So I'm just gluing everything together and leave it to dry. So the theater itself is actually done now. Now I am going to make some walls to put into the theater from top and down, where you can have houses and stuff like that on, so you get a more three-dimensional look when you look through the little window in the front here. So I am cutting some popsicles here into the length or the depth of the house from the top and down. Then I have a popsicle stick that I cut in half lengthwise, and I'm now cutting it so that it fits the top of this theater so that it can hang on the sides that we put on earlier. And I'm gonna make 2 of these just because I can. And I am going to glue these 2 pieces here until these top pieces, you can see it lays perfectly in the length of the theater. And now I am gluing it on so that these will fit into the theater and have no problems with going in and out. And I'm gonna do this with both of these pieces here. And I made 2 of these so that I have a little more depth in this little theater. Don't put much more than 2 in there because it can also be too much. 1 or 2 is perfect. So I made 2 of these, and I made the glue harden before I continued. So now I have these 3 parts, and I made sure that these wall pieces are actually fitting into the theater before I continued here. Now I'm taking some black paint and I'm painting the inside black, so the flooring, the edges and stuff like that, not the background, because I'm going to glue a piece of paper on there, so I'm not gonna paint the background, but I'm painting everything here on the inside except the background with the black. Then I'm mixing a very light gray color and I'm painting everything on the outside with the light gray. As you can see here, I painted the edges on the front and on the sides black as well, but you can do that part as you want to. I just want it to be dark on the inside so you won't get distracted from anything inside the box. And now I am just painting the outside, the back side, the front side, the sides, and the bottom part of this all gray. I also painted these wall pieces all gray so that they match to the box itself. When that was all dried, I dry brushed everything here on the theater with first a dark gray and then afterwards with a light gray. It's looking white, but it is a light gray. You don't have to do it on the walls, but all around the little theater so that it looks a little more like stone and interesting. Make sure everything is all dry before you continue with this little build. Then I printed out the print file that you find in the info box below. This print file is some pieces from a dollhouse magazine. I don't really recall which one or the name of it. I got these from a friend, and this is just a copy of that. So these are not mine. I am cutting out this little picture in the middle of the frame careful with the frame because we need more of it. Then I have this double-sided tape here, so I am going to use that to glue this little picture onto some cardstock to make sure it won't be see-through, and that I am having this little thicker paper to glue. It's better, I think, but you could print this file in on some thicker cardstock than I did here. Cut this out again, and then I'm going to glue that in the background here of my little theater. I am just using a paper glue for this. That is more than enough. And I was looking for my tweezers or something, but I decided just to force it down. And then I am making sure it is sitting as I want it, and then I'm pushing it down into place. Then I'm taking the piece that we put to the side before, and I'm cutting out this side panel. There is kind of a little warrior here on the side, and I'm just cutting him out in a square around. There's kind of drawn a black square around him, so I'm just cutting from that. And I'm also cutting this longer piece here out, and this one I am gluing underneath the front of the theater here. Again, I'm just using a paper glue to glue that down. Then I'm putting some glue behind this little soldier, and I'm placing him here at the side of the theater, making a connection between the bottom piece thingy there and the little soldier. And now I'm just cutting out the other soldier and gluing him to the other side of the little theater. Make sure you are careful with the top part of this paper because we need that as well. Glue this little soldier into place, and then I cut the rest or the excess of this little ribbon we have at the bottom part. I'm gonna cut that off because it is too long. Anyway, now I am going back to this top paper, and I am cutting out this red carpet here, or call it what you want to. Again, I am being really careful because the top of this, I'm gonna need that as well, the part over the little curtain here. So I'm cutting the ends because this curtain is a bit too long, and then I'm just cutting straight on the top. I'm sorry you can't see that. And I'm going to glue this tiny piece at the top of the front on the inside, and it is teasing me a tiny bit, but I will get it into that little house. Now for the rest of the paper piece here, for this one, I am going to cut out the top ribbon here on the paper. Let me show you in a second. Here we go. So I'm cutting out this little ribbon here, and I'm just following the inside of the ribbon, and then I am roughly cutting out the top side of the ribbon with all the details that's on there. So it doesn't really matter if it's not really nicely cut here. You won't see it because of the gray color on the theater. And when I have this cut out, I am going to glue that on top of the theater. You don't have to do all this decoration, but I think that is the part that gives this little theater some life and make it more real and cute to look at. So I'm just gluing that on here, and you can see it's sticking out on both sides. So I'm going to cut that off in a second. So now the outside of the little theater is all done. We will later put in some flooring here. Now I'm going to take this little house print again that was on the print file. It was a tiny bit bigger than this one. It's a box house actually that you can put together into a box, but we're going to use this for the side pieces of our little theater. And I am going to use this double-sided tape again to glue this paper until some thicker cardstock, just to make sure that it will stay in place and stay nice when I'm all done with it. So you don't really have to do this, but I felt that it was kind of necessary to do. I cut out 4 buildings, 2 wide ones and 2 thin ones, and I'm making sure that the roof is having an angle to 2 of them to one side and 2 of them to the other side. So a large and a small one for one side and a large and a small one for the other side, and I am cutting everything out of this cardstock. When I have my houses, I am finding these wall pieces and I'm gonna glue the houses on here. Don't make them fill too much on the middle of in the middle of it, because you want to still be able to see the background. I made mine a bit too wide and big, so I am going to cut one of them a little down because I thought it was a bit too much. And you don't want any paper on the outside of the wall, because then you won't be able to place it into the little theater. But I am doing this on both of the walls. So on one wall I have the bigger houses, and on the other one I have the smaller houses. And I am going to leave this to dry before I cut off the excess, gluing the other 2 houses on the other wall. I leave the wall for drying before I continue. Here I have some wood veneer that I cut out in small strips. This is self-adhesive wood veneer, and I'm using that to make the flooring of the little theater. And then I cut the excess of the floor off, so my little theater is looking nice and cute. And that's all for the theater itself. Now back to the walls. So now I'm cutting the excess of these small walls here on the outside, making sure that the outside line here is all flush. On the one with the small houses, they are just only filling up these icicles. And here I decided to shorten off this little longer house, so I cut a piece of the house and a piece of the roof so it looks right. Now it's just a matter of getting to pop them into the little theater, which I did outside the screen, so that's perfect, but it's in there and it actually looks really nice and 3D like. So now for the doors that you find on the print sheet as well. I am using 2 pieces of this self-adhesive veneer, and I'm placing them together with the adhesive, and I'm cutting a really thin strip of this. You can use a piece of thicker cardstock for this, or a wooden stick of some kind, but you want it to be thin and small, but it needs to be longer than the theater here, lengthwise like this, so that you can kind of grab the little doll and put it into the theater and out again. So I made 2 of these. I'm not gonna use these, I just wanted to show you this is one way of making these sticks that goes in there. Cut out the doll you like. I'm gonna take this girl, and then I am making sure that the bottom part of her is all flush and straight, and then I am bending this at the middle point so that the dolls are actually placed on top of each other. And I'm cutting out this little piece here, and it takes a long time to do that, so just be careful with it and do a neat job. When I have her all cut out, I am going to open her up, and I'm going to place her at the end of this stick here, so that the stick is kind of a part of her, maybe call that. So it's going on the bottom part of her, and I'm gonna glue her together on each side of this little stick. I did a 3D printed version of this, so if you have a 3D printer, you can print it out instead of working with wood. And I have 3 different walls here that you can pop in there. There is even small places to stick them in, so you again can get the depth. And I even made a curtain wall so that you can make the red carpet go down there, and you can also find the print file. You can also find the red carpet on the print file. You can also use it as another background. You can do it as you want to. And I made these small sticks here to the dolls. And I am going to use one of these for this little doll. So again, I'm taking my paper glue. If you have the wood stick or the one that I just made out of the veneer, you just do the same thing. You place the glue on the doll, then you place the little stick in between the 2 pieces of the doll, and then you glue her around the tip of the stick so that the stick is flush with the bottom part of the doll. And this way you have a little doll that you can play with in the house. I made all 3 dolls for this one. I'm not gonna show it, but I did. Then there is also this little table with the 3 chairs on there. I'm going to cut that out, and I'm cutting it out so that it has a flap underneath this little picture. So I'm just taking my time with cutting it out. And here you see that I am going to make that little flap here. And I'm gonna bend this little flap behind, just like this. And I'm gonna cut a tiny bit of the edges so that you don't see them that much in the little theater. And then you can glue this until the floor in the theater, or you can place it on another stick if you want to be able to move it around. I decided to glue mine at the bottom of the theater. And that is all there is for this little craft. Thank you for watching. That was it for today. I had a blast with this one. I hope you will enjoy this little build as well. Thank you again for watching, and happy crafting. Subscribe, like, and ring the bell button.